Today we're going to check out the Nilfgaard cards from the Tide Rises and see what's up to there. I think the Scoia'tael, well, as far as I know, the Scoia'tael and Monsters ones are the ones with new keywords, so we shouldn't have to look anything else up for these. But anyway, let's go get into the Nilfgaard cards and see what we've got going on. First up, we have the Imperial Marine, Human Soldier. Soldier synergy right there, which is nice. 4 for 5 provisions. It's got flanking. I always like to see flanking keyword. I think it's one of the more interesting keywords because of how you can interact with it with movement and stuff. Zeal Order, choose a card from your deck. At the end of your turn, move it up 1 position towards the top. If it's on top, boost self by 1. Well, I'm glad we didn't make the Hyper Thin deck yet. I was going to make the Hyper Thin deck video last week because someone sent me a deck list I wanted to try out. But we didn't get around to it, so it's a really good thing we didn't, because this looks like a Hyper Thin card in addition to some other stuff. So obviously, right off the bat, you can just use this to move something up in your deck if you want to see it. Like, for example, say you're playing a Masquerade Ball deck and don't want to play Yonkou Wait because you don't have many tactics. You play this, you click on the Masquerade Ball, and it goes up 2 spots, because I'm assuming you're going to play this with the flanking active right away in that case. Or it just moves up a spot, so you're more likely to draw it. That's quite good. Hopefully they don't do the bug, which they always seem to do when they release cards that let you pick things in your deck. Like half the time, they show you your deck in order, so hopefully that's not the case with this one. But you never know. It might be worth looking into on like the patch day to see if that's how this works. Anyway, if you're playing Hyper Thin, the card's going to be on top of your deck anyway. Suppose it's Albrecht, for example, and every turn gets 1 bigger or 2 bigger, and then your Hyper Thin finisher gets to, like, instead of being a plus, what's Albrecht, usually like an 18, it goes up to a 35 if they don't kill this. Because that's like 8, or 36 would be 8 turns of them not interacting with us if it's on top. And then your Albrecht's really, really big. It's one of the problems with Hyper Thin is the finisher's just not big enough compared to some other stuff nowadays. But this could certainly help out with that. And if that's not the case, you could just pick something and then move it to the top of your deck that's not a Hyper Thin card. You could play your Yonkou Wait, for example. Just play this and click the highest version card in your deck. It'll get +1 or 2 a turn. So it's a lot of uses. I think it'll mostly be used, though, for the Hyper Thin. Although it depends what other cards we have revealed with this. But I like this card. It seems pretty cool. Not sure how frequently be played, but it's very cool. Next up, we have Imperial Fleet. So 4 provisions for 4 power for 5 provisions. Another ship, machine ship. So machine synergies here, and I see charge already. So what's his name? The engineer guy, combat engineer. More use for him. I'm curious if he's gonna get reworked if these all have charges, but they reworked them recently, so I don't imagine they would. Anyway, machine ship, Zeal Order, infuse an enemy unit with at the end of your turn damage self for each active flanking unit in the opposite row. So at the end of the opponent's turn, each flanking unit that's active in the opposite row does a damage. 1 charge. So the most active flanking units you have, I assume that means the flanking keyword is triggering. Or would trigger. So say they have 2 in the opposite row, which is the most they can have. It would be 2 damage a turn under that condition. That's really good. There's 1 damage a turn, not so good. If it was at the end of your turn instead of the end of the infused unit's turn, this would be much better because you know you get 2 damage right away. I'm not so sure about this one. One thing to keep in mind, though, is Combat Engineer. Because with Combat Engineer, you can fairly easily give this 5 charges on deploy. It's got Zeal Order. Now, this thing has 5 charges on deploy. Well, now we're talking something completely different. Because that, you just put on all their units, or you stack 5 on 1 unit, and it takes 5 a turn. We'll see how much synergy there is with the other ships. So this has potential, depending on how good the synergies are with these ships and flanking. We got 2 ships, right? Or we got a soldier and a ship. So this guy and this guy go well together. Wonder if the rest of them will too. But this is very interesting. I'm not convinced it's really good right now, but we'll see what the other cards are. It certainly has uses, and I think the Combat Engineer makes it quite a bit better. Next up, we have a 5 power for 10 provisions. Machine ship. Flanking. Oh, so we have a flanking unit that's not a soldier. This is the first flanking that's not a soldier, right? I think so. This first flanking is not a soldier. Okay, that makes this quite a bit better then, if they're going to have more ships with these flankings. So order poison a non-poisoned unit with at least one status. At the end of your turn, gain a charge. Yeah, charge. Yeah, I think Combat Engineer is going in these decks. Pretty sure. Because if this comes down with 5 charges, obviously you can't poison a poison unit, so you can't double-click this on something. And they also need to already have a charge. But that can be set up with spying, for example. It won't be the easiest thing to set up, but if they have playing tokens... Oh, and if there's more poisons, this will be interesting. But yeah, this helps you set up all of your other poisons. You still need that first status, though. Bleeding's one way to do it with the pikeman. I think that'll be the best way to do this. You just play pikeman. Pikeman has flanking. It synergizes with the other cards. It puts out that bleeding, then it gives it poison. And every turn you get another charge of this. So if the opponent has very little control, you can really put out a ton of statuses with this. Also works well against doomed stuff, like the symbiosis tokens with Equinox, stuff like that. So I think this has potential. I think it's very situational, though, because if you can't give them that first status easily, this becomes very bad. So you have to always give out that first status. Fergus comes to mind with his 3 spyings. I think Pikeman's probably the best way to do it. You can always play Van Morleham's Servant and play a bunch of locks. You can poison the locked cards. A lot of the very similar to what Philippa does. Or Felipe Van Morleham, not Philippa. So this one's interesting. I think it'll be situational, but it probably is good in this deck. We'll see the other cards. We'll come back to this one. Battle Stations. So we've got 10 provisions. Play up to a tactic. Play up to 2 bronze cards from your deck and draw as many cards. This is really good for the setup of the other cards. You're playing 2 bronzes, so it's a really good tempo play. And what you can do is you can play out a Marine or any soldier, anything with flanking really, probably a pikeman too, then play out one of your ships next to it, like the fleet. There's also other things you can do with this. Oops, we don't want to skip ahead. Where you can just play out, for example, 2 poison cards, like 2 Things of the Empire. Boom, that kills a unit. It's pretty good. You can go play out 2 engines at once. You can go with 2 of your aristocrats. Either seditious aristocrats or thirsty dames. So, I think this card's quite good. The thing is, they play from your hand instead of your deck, but you are drawing 2, so it's going to get through your deck faster, which is nice. I'm not sure everyone will play this, because 10 provisions for the tempo swing of 2 cards in 1 turn, I think is certainly worth it, but some people might not. It's going to be good in a short round, too, if you have bronze cards in your hand. So you go to your round 3 with like 3 cards, you have this and 2 bronzes. Play this, play the 2 bronzes, and then you can draw into better cards. Or just play a higher volume of bronze cards. So I quite like this. It's not as good as something like Sigi or Rio, or is it Riordan? We saw on the Scoia'tael cards, but it's still, I think, good. The question is, if you don't have enough provisions in the deck, this might be a card you just don't fit. But I do like it, and I think it'll probably see some play. It's going to be interesting. I like this one. Not sure just how powerful it'll be, but it's definitely good for a couple things, like setting up the ship. Oh, one other thing you can definitely do this is you can play just play 2 flanking cards next to each other and get the flankings triggering. Just like do this into double Ardfin like cavalries. Bang, that's your 4 damage a turn setup right there. They just play some engine, you do that. Yeah, this card has a lot of uses, so I think it will see play. It's quite cool. On to the legendaries. We have Admiral Rompelli, Human Soldier Aristocrat. These guys were just machines, right? And he wasn't. He was just a soldier. So Aristocrat, worth noting. 4 power, 12 provisions, pretty expensive. Zeal Order, choose 3 enemy units, give them lock, poison, spying, that order. Okay, so he's the setup for the other guy. Good. So it locks one of them, poisons one of them, and spies one of them. At the end of your turn, boost self by the highest number of statuses on an enemy unit. So let's say we're just playing. Let's just say we go spying. Say we spy something, we give it a bleeding from a pikeman, we poison and lock it. That's 4 statuses. That's 4 points a turn. That is pretty good. And we know when you play him, it'll give you at least 1 point a turn. I'm pretty convinced it'll give you 2 points a turn almost every time you play this guy. because they'll either have something doomed to put the status on, one of these statuses on, or you'll have set it up with some other card. There's a lot of bleedings, poisons, anything can set this up. And the poison can kill something that you set up with the other ship earlier. The Catriona, right? You poison something, play this. Catriona has flanking, remember, so you can get 2 statuses of this. Give out that poison as a status. I'm a little... So, thematically, I'm not sure why the ships are poisoning. Maybe there's assassins on the ships. We'll go, there's assassins on the ships. But anyway, yeah, this seems pretty decent if you can really make your deck synergize with it. And a straight ball deck, I guess it's still not bad, actually. Locks, useful, poison, and spying. And you do need some setup for this, right? Like, you want to have... They need to have 3 units. They need to have 3 units, first of all. And then you have to put these on them. And then you have to be able to finish off the poisoned one, or his poison finishes it. The lock's good. The spying's probably not as relevant here. If you're playing something with Vin... I guess you'd play like probably playing Vin Mortalhelm Servants in this deck and just stack statuses on something. But I can imagine it would be very easy to get this 3 points a turn, right? Probably from Pikeman, either an imprisonment leader charge or some kind of leader charge effect. Imposter, whatever. And then you do this. And he puts the third status on it. This could be really good. Because a lot of the time, if the opponent has a big card and you don't think they have a Purify, you can just leave the poison on it to do poison at the end of the round for a finisher type effect. This one's really interesting. I'm curious to see how it plays out. I can see it being good. I can also see it being too situational or just not enough value. But I think it'll definitely... I think it'll have times it shines. But we're not too sure. We'll see. Then we have Bakala. Resilience Location. Another Nilfgaard Resilience card. Can we use Sacred Flame? Get Resilience yet, by the way? Anyway. Bakala is a 13 precision location. Kind of like Beauclair. So, Resilience, deploy, spawn Imperial fleet on left, to the left of self, and Imperial Marine to the right of self. That's those 2 cards we saw first, right? We got a Marine and a fleet. So you play this, you get both the Marine and the fleet, and they synergize with each other because this has the flanking, and then this has the end of turn for flanking effect. This sets up the flanking with this between them. So right away, you're getting 10 provisions worth of cards with their setup. And that's quite good. Then you've got order, boost 2 allied units that swap their positions. So you're getting 10 provisions worth of stuff, 4 boosts, and a swap aroundo. Yeah, this seems good, especially in a deck where you want to use these because you're going to want more of the Marines and more of the fleets if you're playing a deck based around them. This gives you another one of each. The Resilience means you can carry over this order. It means you don't necessarily need to be playing Imperial Formation to use this effect because you can fix flankings easily with this. It doesn't re-armor, so you're the soldier. I think like the soldier cards that want armor, the barricade ones will probably stay in Imperial Formation, but you could play this in a different leader effect because you don't really need those as much. You probably play Alba Pikemen in this. You probably play the flanking card in here, the fleet. It's very interesting. So you'd have space for the other ones if you wanted to. I think this is a strong effect. I like cards that give you setup right away. Kind of like how I liked the Scoia'tael one. But yeah, cards that give you setup right away are good, usually. And this seems like it'll be good. I'm interested to try out the ships. I think Marine you can just slip into like Hyperthin, which might be interesting, but the rest of these I think go pretty well in this ship deck. Definitely something to try out and experiment with. And what other cards you want to use. Let me know what you guys think about these cards. I think they're pretty interesting, and I'm kind of excited to try out the Nilfgaard ones. I think this deck will be a little bit harder to make than some of the other ones because of how many options you have, but we should be able to make something work. Let me know what you think, and we'll see you in the next one. That'll be it for this one, guys. Hope you enjoyed. We'll see you next time. Make sure that like button and subscribe to the channel for more. And you can check out some more videos over here. And thanks for watching.